Alright guys, TC Mabe coming at you live with a quick tutorial. Hopefully you guys are doing good tonight. I just put up a couple of videos for some assets that are out there. Hopefully you guys get a chance to take a look at those and maybe they help you with your projects. Make sure you read the disclaimer I put in the one video. It's been getting a lot of traction and I just want to make sure that I'm not misleading anybody. The package that I show and that's not available yet. It's potentially coming out tomorrow or the next day. And the author of that package never said, run out and buy my stuff and I'll do this for you. That was just I was trying to let people know that there was a potential that there was an integration out there. So take a look at it if you get a chance. It's a couple videos back. But what I wanted to bring you real quick is a simple random zombie generator that I'm working on. I was working on a game, and without getting too much into the details, it's basically a zombie game. But what I had a problem with is, I use these Synty assets quite a bit, and in the Synty assets there is a couple of characters that are in here that have, the various components on them here. Let me pull them up here. This is Polygon Apocalypse meshes. I think I showed you guys this package earlier. And in the body section, or actually in the character section, I'm sorry, character section in here, if I can blow these up just a little bit, there's like 4 zombie bodies in here. There's female 01, female 02, zombie male 01, and zombie male 02. Now, you look at these and they have these pretty generic looking features to them and everything. Well, if you're playing a zombie game, my issue with the one package, was that the characters are very distinct. Like there's one guy in a hot dog suit that's a zombie or something like that. And then there's another one that's like a bellhop at a hotel. So if you're playing a zombie game and you got hordes of zombies coming at you, you're probably going to get tired of killing the same one over and over and over again. So in this particular package, they also include some of the additional sections in here in a thing called character attachments. And in the character attachments section, they have like a couple of different backpacks. They have a couple of different hair pieces and beards. And I didn't put the beards on these yet. I got to do that. Just reminded of myself. But they have all these different little attachments. And so what I wanted to do was to kind of randomize which ones of these attachments popped onto a zombie to just give them some little bit of flavor. And then probably what I'll do, in this package, I also have the Polygon City zombies, and I took their 2 bodies that were in here for the male and the female, which there's a female zombie here. It looks awfully similar to the zombie I showed you a second ago, I think. And then there's another one that's the male. I think these are probably about the same. But anyway, they also have a couple of bodies in there with some attachments and things like that. So I don't think there's many attachments in the zombie city pack. But what I did is I brought those guys in, and I don't know if you've seen this before, but if you ever look up like modular asset generation, there's a thing that you can do in this script inside. I'm in my case the Apocalypse zombie character blueprint. And there's a script section in here called the construction script. And basically what the construction script does is it fires every time there's a modification to something with the character. And so what I'm using it for is when the character gets spawned into play, I go through and I set a skeletal mesh randomly from the 5 choices or whatever it is that I have, 5, 6 choices. And then I also have an attachment for their back, which is the backpack attachment. And then I have another one for their head, which is going to change which head is on there and not which head, but which hair piece and which hat and potentially the beards and things like that get attached to their head. Okay. So what we're talking about in there is if you go into one of your characters, and I'll go back to the ones that are in here. But if I go into one of these guys, for example, whoops, not the physics asset. Let me go to the mesh. And, you know, when you're in these things, you can go in and put previews on them. So in the case of this zombie here, like say I wanted to change his hair, you can go in here to his head, go up here where his head's at somewhere, and I can right click and go down and say add preview asset. And then let's say I wanted to look at like hats. So I can go and grab a hat and I can bring it over. Now you see the head socket is rotated differently than the Synty asset is when you bring this in. So what I did is I went to the bone for where the head is, and you just right click and you say add socket. Well, by adding your own socket, let me just remove this preview asset. By adding your own head socket, which I did here, I called it attach underscore head. What that allows you to do is to orient that the way that you want to. So if I now go and add a preview asset to that bone there, and again say hat, what you should see is that that hat is oriented properly on this character. Okay, and I did the same thing with the backpack, you know. And the general idea with it is that you can put these in. Now, a lot of times, if the rotation's off, you can typically go 90 degrees in either direction. And in this case, it was 90 degrees in two directions. But once it gets it lined up, what you'll find a lot of times is that that attachment, at least with these Synty polygon assets, also covers other things. So if I said add preview asset, I could go in here and look for a beard, and the beard actually also attaches to that same head socket and lands at the right spot. So with that one simple head attachment, I can attach hair, I can attach hats, helmets, whatever, all to that one simple attachment point. And again, I just added my own in here. I called it attach underscore head and rotated it the way that I wanted to. Then I did the same thing with the spine 3 location on this particular asset. Spine 3, I put an attachment in here and I called that attach underscore back. Now remember those names because we're going to need them here in a second. What I did in the blueprint script in here is I went to my mesh, and you go and you say add component. And in the case of what we're dealing with over here, these are static meshes. So the backpack is a static mesh, and so is the hat or the helmet, you know, or whatever else you're dealing with in there. It's not a skeletal mesh in this particular case. And you can find that out by, if you go into like your attachments, if you just hover over these things, it'll tell you. So if you highlight that, like you can see it says basically cool female hair 01 static mesh. So in our script, that's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to a static mesh that we're going to pull in there. And what you can see here is when the construction script fires, we have to go and get these from an array. So I pulled in an attach underscore back and my attach underscore head attachments. And then what I did is I said that the bone that those things are connected to on the socket, I created 2 new ones here for static meshes. Pulled those in and then said the parent socket for the attach back is the attach underscore back socket that I created. And the attach underscore head static mesh that I added with the add component is attached to the attach underscore head. So what that lets me do now is to set some things up that I can bring those in. And what you do, if you look at this little icon here, you have like this little grid, and that grid basically is the icon representation of an array. So if you go over here into your variables section, over here under variables, I created a couple of new variables, and one of the variables is called zombie mesh. And you know, like for me, I called it zombie underscore mesh, and I went over here and I said that that is a variable of type skeletal mesh. And then when you designate this slot down here, you can pick this and go down and pick that is an array. When you save that, it'll give you the opportunity to add elements to that array right inside of the blueprint. So what I did is I added some from 0 to 5, and I picked my female 01, female 02, male 01, male 02, female 01, you know, and male 01 from the other package. I put those into this array. And now basically what's happening is this variable called zombie underscore mesh, which is right here, is holding a pointer to 0 through 5 to represent these 6 individual meshes. Arrays start at 0, so it's always whatever your number is minus 1 is the count. So what we would do then is we would drag this out into the construction script area here, and then we can start attaching pins to it. So basically what we have is the target for this. I grab my mesh and drag that in. That becomes my target. And my new mesh that I want to set this to, so see it says set skeletal mesh. Zoom in a little bit, maybe it's easier to see. So you right click out here and just type in set skeletal mesh, and it'll pull up this blueprint function for you. The target of that is going to be the mesh, and the new mesh is going to be represented by the get function. And what I'm doing is I'm getting a zombie mesh, and the spot that I'm getting from the array is just a number, and the number is going to be a random integer within the range of 0, which is the first element of the array, right? This is 0, to a max number. Now, if you knew that there were only, 5 things in your array, you could go and put 5, as your max in here. But what I'm doing is I'm just using the last index function coming off of my zombie mesh. So I have 2 pins coming out of there, two flow lines. One comes out and goes to last index, and that's being used as the max value. That way, if I go in later on and I decide to update this and put a couple more things in here, this is always going to work. I'm not going to break that by adding or deleting from here if I want to change things around. So that's a really interesting, simple use of the last index for that as a max value. So that one's going to set the skeletal mesh and get one of the random meshes from in there. And then the second one, it goes and executes into the pins to set the static mesh. And same thing here. I said I want to go, the target is going to be the back attachment component here, which has got a parent socket of attach back. And I can go down here to my attach back, and same thing. I created that as a static mesh array, right? And this one, when you specify the variable type, it's static mesh instead of skeletal mesh, which this one was a skeletal mesh. It's a static. And again, once you save that, you get the opportunity to go in and put additional things in there. Now, you'll notice in this one, I only have like 5 backpacks. So I put in the 5 backpacks that I have, which occupy spaces 0 through 4. And then what I did is I put in a bunch of empty placeholders within the array. And really what this is simulating is that I have 20 slots, and I have 5 things that have slots in them. So I'm creating a percentage chance to not have a backpack on a zombie. So basically if you were looking at like playing D&D, a 20-sided dice or whatever, so like a roll of 1 to 4 or 1 to 5 gets a backpack and everything else is not, So that's the general idea behind those empty cells in there. And again, that's why you want to use these last index functions. It makes it real easy. And then the last one was just a zombie attachment for the head, which I showed you where the socket goes in there. And this also gets an array. And this array has 25 different elements in it with all the different hair types and different hair pieces that are in there. Now what the construction script will do, as I said earlier, is whenever you fire this, it's going to run that randomization operation on here. And the net result of this whole thing is if I go to the viewport and highlight the mesh or whatever, I can see my zombie is here. So we'll turn him around a little bit. And if you hit the simulation button, every time you hit the simulation button, it should refire the initialization script and generate another character that is randomly wearing different pieces of armor or backpacks or whatever it is you want to put in there. So that's kind of how that's set up. And I thought what I would do, maybe, I don't really have too many other things to load onto these characters other than beards, and I already have a head socket for those. But I could kind of show you, I guess, real quick how that would work. And what we would do for that is we would go to our character. And if I go into wherever I want that attachment to be, now I already have a attach head in here. I'm just going to go and say remove all attached assets. But I'll create a new one, and then I'll just take it off later. So I'm going to say, I'll call this attach beard. So if I go to head, and I'm going to say add socket, and I'm going to give it a name. And this is going to be attach underscore beard. And then what I would do is I would preview this by saying add preview asset and put a beard on there. And what should happen is this beard should be sideways because I haven't lined the socket up yet. So you see it went onto the character, but it's kind of like turned at an odd angle and coming out the side of his ear. I should probably use a bigger beard to make this a little bit easier to see. But anyway, if I take the beard attachment, I can go to my rotation tool. And then what I can do is I can take that and normally go 90 degrees. So there's 90 that way. And then I'm also going to tilt it back 90. And when I do that, I now have my beard rotated into the proper orientation. And if you're concerned that maybe that's not the right orientation, then what you do is you go and remove all attached assets, right click and say add preview asset, and we'll just get a different beard. So you might want to check this with a couple. So I'll do like a fuller beard, and now you'll see that that beard is in the right spot. Okay, so remember we have a socket here called attach underscore beard. When I go into my script over here, what I want to do now is bring in, under my mesh, I want to add a component. And so I would say add component. And we said that this was a static mesh. So I just type in stat and it pulls up static mesh here. And I'll call this attach underscore beard. And then it's going to bring in, if you notice right here, that is the attach beard thing that it brought in. And by default, it brings it in at the coordinates of 0, 0, 0. So what I want to do is tell it that it actually has a parent socket, and my parent socket in here is going to be attach underscore beard, and that'll put it up where it belongs because I've already identified where that attachment goes on the character itself. Okay, so then I will say compile that just to make sure that everything looks good. Then down here, what I want to do is I want to go and grab a variable. So I'm going to go in and say add variable just by hitting the plus button. And I'm going to call this zombie underscore beard. We'll hit enter, and then over here, the variable type, we want to go in here and say static mesh. Might have to type it in because there's a lot of stuff in there. Static mesh. And so that'll pull this up right here. And then on this little icon here, we want to go down and pick this array. And if you hover over these, it'll tell you what it is. So hover the array. And now when I compile this, now notice there's nothing here yet, but when I compile this, there should be a pin that drops out. Zombie beard, 0 array elements. Okay. So if I hit the plus button and hit my drop down, I can go in here and type in beard. And so I just grab the first one. Let me go and grab the next one. Beard. And I just keep going down through here until I get all of my different beards in this array. I don't think there's too many in here, but we'll keep looking. Let's see, beard. Oh, gotta be in here. And these are just different, looks like the same beard right there. Zombie biker male beard 1. So I'll grab that one. I don't know, maybe I missed one, but it doesn't really matter. But let's say I just want to have a couple of random beards in here. And then I don't want everybody to have a beard, so what I would do is I would add some additional empty array elements in here. Right, just a handful of them or whatever is enough usually. So like if I wanted a 50% chance and I've only got 4 of these, I'm going to put 8 total slots in here, so 4 empties. So right now I have just slightly less than a 50% chance. I could crank this up, just use some basic math to give yourself whatever your percentages you're looking for. And now what I'm going to do is in my construction script, we'll go ahead and we'll get another one of these. And the way that you would do this is you just right click and say set static mesh. And it's got 3 different ones in here, right? It's got one for the back, one for the beard, one for the head. So I'm going to say set static mesh for the beard. And it already brings out my attached beard node. And then we just follow basically what I already have on here. So for the static mesh, we want to go and get our zombie beard array. We're going to drag that out here. And we say get zombie beard. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say we want our new mesh to be based on the zombie beard. What's going on there? Oh, yeah. You got to do the get. Sorry. So we're going to drag off this pin into a get. And then take that pin into the do mesh. And then coming off the random integer thing here. Actually, this will get replaced with the random integer. Sorry. Take this off here. My screen's a little jacked up looking at this. So we're going to come off of that, and we're going to go from the array. We're going to go down here and just say last index. We get our last index. And then we need a random integer in range. And again, we're just going to wire this up so that it matches what I already have on here. If you guys can see that pretty good. Scroll these up a little, get them closer. Okay, and so coming from your zombie beard, your last index is going to be the max value. Your minimum is going to be 0. And then from that, you're going to go into your get. Right here. Oh, wait a minute. Did I go the wrong direction? Yeah, what did I do? Static mesh is the target. The new mesh is coming off of the get. And then this is going out of the return value from the random integer in range, which is fed by that last index. I just had the wrong side of the pins there. And again, to recap on what's going on there, you're going to set the static mesh for the beard attachment using the variables that you put in for the array, and you're going to get the last index of that and then randomize it and feed it back to the thing. And then to make it run, we just come off of this execution pin down here and plug that in. And now when I compile this, if everything works, when I go back to my viewport, as I randomize this by hitting that simulation button, I should now start to see that some zombies will have a beard. That guy's got a beard. Tough to see some of these guys, but you can see his mustache and beards on there. And there's another beard. There's a beard and some dreads and a backpack. And so by doing this, it gives you, if you have some modular assets or different attachments, you can do this with basically any skeletal mesh or any kind of attachment that you wanted to, like say you were playing a battle royale style game and you wanted people to spawn in with random loot, random guns, random backpacks, whatever. You could do it right here by doing that same basic type of thing. And again, you just check through your iterations. And if you have something that's popping up too frequently, like this hair is very uncommon looking hair, but you can see it pops up quite a bit. And same thing with that red hat. So I might get rid of things that look kind of like super distinct like that, But again, that's the basics of it. And you can randomize just about anything that's a skeletal mesh or a static mesh. The easiest way, as I found earlier, like I said, create a socket, rotate the socket where you want it, come back over here and bring that in as a component that's attached to your mesh, create an array for it, populate the array with your items, like we can see here. And then once you have your array populated, go in and write your construction script to populate those things. And what I'm going to do is I'll open this up a little bit and I'll just zoom in on this. Basically, if you look here, these two are the same as this one. And the only difference between these is that one's a skeletal mesh and the other ones are static meshes. So if I were to drag all this over here, for example, it looks the same as all the other ones. But I want you to be able to get an opportunity to see exactly what's going on here. and maybe this helps you guys out. I know some games are better if you have a little randomization to them. And in theory, I would guess you could probably make the same thing work with like a random treasure chest or something. Like every time the lid gets open, it randomizes a treasure within a given table. Now, the one thing I would point out with this too is what I just said. I'll blow this up where you can see just a couple of examples if you want to be able to copy that. Um, the way that some of this would work better, in my opinion, would be if you had a data table that you pulled from, which has probably a couple more functions that you have to go through to get that. But the advantage might be that you could populate your array from a data table, which can actually be fed from a spreadsheet. You can export your spreadsheet. And the other benefit of an array in that regard, or coming from a data table rather, is that a data table can have multiple positions within an array. So if I wanted to spawn a random weapon, not only could I go find out what the mesh is for the weapon, but I could also find out, what its damage is, or, what its weight class is, or, what type of ammo it takes, things like that. So if you have a lot of attributes that you want to be able to manipulate or identify, that's probably an easy way to do that, is to put it into a data table and then pull it from there. So again, I'll leave the screen up for just a sec and give you guys an opportunity. Again, pause the video, if that's not easy for you to follow along with. But hopefully it helps somebody out. Again, my name's TC Mabe with TC Gaming. And you guys take care of yourselves. If you have any questions about the video, feel free to shoot me a message. This video doesn't have my Discord link in it, but I'll probably go back and update the descriptions and get all that stuff in there for you. Some of my previous videos have my Google Drive links for some of the animations and content and stuff like that. So I'll put that stuff in the header of this after I get done with this video. So thanks again for watching, guys. Please stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And I will see you in an upcoming stream. Thanks again, guys.